You might think you're just tired, that it's lack of sleep, a busy schedule, maybe not enough coffee. But what if I told you that tired feeling you carry has nothing to do with energy at all? It's not physical, it's emotional. You're carrying things no one can see. The constant pressure to prove yourself, the weight of who you think you need to be, the fear of letting someone down. You're holding it all silently, and no one ever asks why you're so exhausted, because on the outside, you seem fine, but deep down, you're running on empty. You're not just tired, you're overwhelmed. Your nervous system is always on. You're bracing for something to go wrong, even when everything's quiet. And that tired feeling, it's your body asking you to let go of the invisible load you've been carrying for too long. And it starts here. The tricky thing is, you've gotten used to the weight. You carry it so well, even you forget it's there sometimes. You move through your day like it's normal to feel drained before noon. You smile when you're supposed to. You keep showing up, checking boxes, keeping everything running, even when something inside you is quietly falling apart. But the truth is, most of your exhaustion isn't from what you're doing. It's from what you're holding. You're holding unspoken expectations, holding other people's emotions while stuffing down your own, holding the pressure to be okay, even when you're not. You're constantly anticipating, fixing, managing, not just your life, but how people perceive you inside it. And that's the kind of weight that rest doesn't fix. You can sleep 8 hours and still wake up tired, because your mind never stopped running. Your body never fully let go. You were clenching your jaw in your sleep, bracing your muscles for impact, because your nervous system is so used to being on defense. And most of the time, you don't even notice it. You don't call it survival. You call it being productive. You don't call it self-abandonment. You call it being reliable. You don't call it fear. You call it just being prepared. But what if you've been holding it for so long that you've forgotten you were allowed to put it down? This isn't about being lazy. It's not about giving up. It's about recognizing the quiet war happening inside you. The constant background effort of carrying emotions that were never fully processed, identities that were never truly yours, and expectations that were never meant to be yours to fulfill. That's why you feel tired, not just in your body, but in your soul. Here's the part most people don't talk about. The longer you carry what's not yours, the more it starts to feel like it is. The pressure to be dependable, the role of the one who always understands, the expectation to stay calm, fix the problem, carry the mood of the room. You wear it like a second skin, not because you chose it, but because somewhere along the way, it became the only way to feel safe. And the cost? It's not just burnout. It's the slow erosion of your identity. The part of you that laughs without overthinking, the part of you that rests without guilt, the part of you that asks for help, admits you're tired, says no without apology. Carrying too much doesn't just make you tired, it makes you smaller. Not physically, emotionally. You start pulling back from things you used to love, not because you don't care anymore, but because you don't have the space. You're too full of invisible responsibilities to enjoy the moment you're in, too weighed down by survival mode wiring to breathe deeply, fully, completely. And no one sees it, because you're functioning, because you're high performing, because you never let yourself fall apart in public, not even a little. But inside, you're held together by pressure and habit, not peace, not clarity, just momentum, and the fear of what happens if you finally stop. But here's what's true. You can't keep carrying what's slowly emptying you. You weren't made to be everything for everyone. You weren't made to absorb pain just to make others more comfortable. You weren't made to carry decades of unspoken feelings just because you're strong enough to hide them. And the more you carry, the more disconnected you become from yourself. Until one day, you don't even know what's you and what's just the weight. That's the quiet collapse, not loud, not visible, but felt in the pauses of your day, in the way your body never truly relaxes, in the way you can't remember the last time you felt light. Not happy, just light. And then one day, maybe slowly, maybe all at once, you start putting it down. Not everything, not all at once. Just one piece, one pattern, one quiet decision to not carry something that isn't yours anymore. Maybe it's the pressure to explain how you feel to people who never really listen. Maybe it's the guilt that shows up every time you say no. Maybe it's the mental checklist you run through before giving yourself permission to rest. You catch yourself reaching for it, the old weight, the old script. But something in you pauses this time. Something in you finally asks, what if I don't? What if you stop cushioning other people's discomfort with your silence? What if you stop trying to make everyone else feel safe at the cost of your own peace? What if you stop trying to look like you're fine when you're not? And when you stop, something shifts. Your breath deepens. Your thoughts slow down. You notice your shoulders aren't so tense. You're not scanning the room for tension like you used to. You're not planning your next emotional escape route. You're just here, not completely healed, not totally free, but finally not adding more weight. And that's where it begins. Not with closure, not with fixing, not with answers. It begins when you realize you don't need to carry the whole story anymore. You don't need to over-explain your pain. You don't need to make it all make sense. You don't need to hold the entire emotional weight of everyone else's perception of you. Letting go isn't passive, it's not giving up. It's choosing, actively, to stop giving your energy to the things that drain you and never give anything back. It's deciding that you're allowed to exist without constantly managing the emotional temperature of every room you walk into. It's remembering that your worth isn't measured by how much pain you can endure quietly. And no, it's not instant. You'll still feel the reflex to hold it. You'll still hear the voices that say, just be strong a little longer. But now, you have a choice. And every time you choose release over control, softness over pressure, rest over performance, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Not the you built on resilience, the you that never needed to harden in the first place. As you begin to let go, really let go, something shifts that's hard to explain, but impossible to miss. You start to move through life differently. Your energy softens. Your edges aren't so sharp. You're no longer reacting from tension. You're responding from presence. You notice you're not as quick to explain yourself, not because you don't care, but because you've stopped trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. You're not scanning every silence, trying to decode what someone else might be thinking. You're not filling space just to feel safe inside it. You start walking slower, talking slower, breathing without bracing. Your nervous system, the part of you that's been living in high alert mode for so long, finally gets the message. We're not in survival anymore. You begin to recognize how much effort you used to give to things that never gave anything back. How much of your identity was built around being the strong one, the calm one, the one who never asks for anything. And now, you're not interested in being impressive. You're interested in being real. You don't care if your softness is misunderstood. You're no longer chasing clarity just to feel safe in your own decisions. You begin to let things be. Let people be. Let yourself be, even when you don't have all the answers. And you notice something you haven't felt in a long time. Space. Space in your body. Space in your day. Space in your mind that used to be filled with fixing, preparing, and performing. You're not afraid of the quiet anymore, because now the quiet doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like a homecoming. And in that space, your presence becomes different. People feel it, even if they can't explain it. You're no longer chasing peace. You are peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're no longer adding pressure to what life already brings. You're not carrying guilt for choosing rest. You're not apologizing for setting boundaries. You're not explaining your healing to people who never asked about your pain. You're just living in rhythm, not reaction. In truth, not tension. And once you feel that lightness, even for a moment, you realize this is what you were missing all along. Not motivation, not more strength, but permission to stop holding what was never yours in the first place. And once your energy starts to soften, something else quietly starts to return. Your voice. Not the voice you've trained to sound composed. Not the one you've filtered through layers of politeness or emotional control. But the one underneath all that. The one that says, I don't have space for this anymore, without guilt. The one that says, this doesn't feel like me. And trusts that's reason enough. It's a voice you haven't heard in a while, maybe because for so long you were taught to prioritize being easy to be around, to accommodate, to smooth over discomfort, to carry silence instead of asking to be heard. But now you're learning, not everything that's heavy belongs to you, and not every emotion you feel is yours to fix. And your voice, it's not selfish, it's sacred. You begin saying what you mean, not to hurt people, not to control outcomes, but because you finally believe that your feelings are not an inconvenience, they're information. You begin setting boundaries, not as punishment, but as protection. Not to shut people out, but to keep yourself from shrinking in places you've outgrown. You stop explaining why you need rest. You stop justifying why you feel overwhelmed. You stop apologizing for your own emotional truth. And that's when something even bigger happens. You start trusting yourself again. Not because you figured it all out, but because you no longer need to. You've stopped treating every decision like it could break you. You've stopped overanalyzing every thought like it holds the secret to peace. You've stopped turning your healing into another performance. And now, you choose slowness, not because you're lost, but because you're listening. You say no, not because you're closed off, but because you finally matter to yourself. You ask less, because you're not looking for permission to be whole anymore. You've stopped dragging your past into every room, stopped shrinking your needs to avoid making others uncomfortable, stopped measuring your worth by how much pain you can carry in silence. And in all that letting go, you begin to feel free, not because you left everything behind, but because you finally stopped gripping what you never needed to hold. And then something even more subtle happens. You stop rushing. You're not racing to fix the past anymore. You're not running towards some future version of yourself who finally has it all figured out. You're not sprinting through your days trying to earn your rest at the end. You slow down, not because life demands it, but because you no longer fear what the stillness might show you. And in that slower pace, life begins to feel different. You're not constantly trying to manage how you're perceived. You're not editing your presence to be more likable, more agreeable, more easy to be around. You're just being, not performing calm, not forcing joy, just allowing what's true to have space without reshaping it for someone else's comfort. You start choosing what feels real over what looks good. You stop committing to things out of guilt. You stop saying yes because you're afraid of what people will think if you say no. And the weirdest part? You don't feel like you're falling behind. You don't feel like you're missing out. You don't feel like you're disappearing. You feel like you're arriving back into your own life, not the life curated for others, not the one wrapped in invisible pressure, but the one that fits you. Your goals shift. You stop chasing things that never really meant anything to you. You stop measuring your worth by productivity. You stop waiting for a better moment to be happy, because now you're not bargaining with your peace. You notice beauty again. Real beauty. The kind that was always there, but you were too mentally overloaded to see it. You notice the weight in your chest isn't so constant. The noise in your mind has gaps now, spaces where breath can land. And instead of using every free moment to fix yourself, you start using them to feel yourself again, to check in, to breathe, to exist without commentary. You begin to feel safe doing nothing, not because you don't care anymore, but because you finally trust that rest isn't the same as failure. You're no longer proving you're okay. You're just being okay, even when things are messy, unclear, unfinished, and that's what makes it real. And maybe this is what it was always about, not becoming stronger by holding more, but finally becoming lighter by holding less. You don't need to figure it all out right now. You don't need to carry everything just because you always have. You don't need to earn your worth through exhaustion. Letting go isn't a weakness. It's the moment you stop abandoning yourself to keep the world around you comfortable. So if this felt like a breath you didn't know you were holding, if even one sentence made something inside you soften, comment, "I'm putting it down." No explanation, just that. Let it be your quiet decision to stop carrying what you were never meant to hold. And if you want more of this, more space, more clarity, more truth like this, subscribe. I'll be right here with you. Not to push you, but to remind you. You're allowed to rest. You're allowed to feel light again. You're allowed to be free.